Sanda ko man ng mundo kayo naroroon. Ito si Kanton bumabati sa lahat ng isang magandang araw o gabi ng Martes, Abril 26, taon 2022 and welcome sa episode number 2 ng WOTN Level Up 3 version 3. At sa gabing ito tayo po'y mapalad na sasamahan ni Migz G upang tayo ay mabigyan ng enlightenment at kaalaman hinggil po sa Bretton Woods Agreement. Ang Bretton Woods Agreement ay isa pong napakahalagang event na magbibigay saysay doon kung bakit kailangan ng ginto ng mga bansa. At ito rin po ang magiging ang Bretton Woods Agreement po yung pinaka-turning point na kung saan ay sinasabing ang Pilipinas ang nagpautang sa mga bansa doon sa mga bansa na walang ginto. So kung walang Bretton Woods Agreement, walang saysay po yung, kumbaga may saysay din naman, pero mawawalan po ng koneksyon. Ang koneksyon, yung kung gaano karami ang ginto sa Pilipinas at kung paano po ito na-distribute para ipautang. So ito po isa sa mga ini-establish natin, pero hindi po natin ma-establish ang essence ng lahat ng WOTN kung wala ang Bretton Woods. Pangalawa, ito yung unang paksa po natin, yung tungkol po sa Bretton Woods Agreement na bibigyan tayo ng importanteng kaalaman ni Migz. At pangalawa, itong tungkol sa pinadala sa akin ni Joel Ranci tungkol sa 5-star PETAL seals na nakalagay po rito ay Alpha Omega Station, Red Dragon Horde Agency, the 5 Alphabet Agency, LSN TVM 666. Of course, sasakyan na naman ito ni TBM, yung mga grupo ni TBM na alam naman po nating medyo questionable ang integridad. At dahilan dyan, ay tayo ay pinadala ng larawan ni Migz na tungkol po dyan sa selyo na yan. Ayan, may selyo po siyang hawak at ipapaliwanag din po niya tungkol dyan sa selyo na yan. May nakikita akong Lee Shi, hindi ko na alam yung sumunod na Chinese character, pero may nakikita akong Lee. Paliliwanag din po niya kasi ang Lee, nandito sa kawing kaliwa, dun sa pinakaibabaw, yan po ay isang apelido. So, hindi na natin patatagalin. Patuloy na natin si Migz Gaviola. Hindi na po ito sa inyo stranger. Madalas na po natin siya nakakasama. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Migz.
Magandang gabi po, Kanton. Magandang gabi din po sa lahat ng nakikinig at nanonood po sa atin ngayon. And I'd like to take this opportunity po na i-greet si Ka Ardo ng belated happy birthday. Sabay pala birthday namin. Natawa tuloy ako. We share the same little day.
Ganun ba? Belated happy birthday din sa iyo, Migz.
Thank you.
So ilang taon na ba tayo dito sa ating pinag-uusapan? Ilang taon ka nang dito sa dimension na ito?
Sa dimension na to, in this lifetime, I started off November 11, 2011. But apparently, sabi nga nila, this is my 7th lifetime together with my partner to attempt this for humanity. So,
7th lifetime?
Matanda-tanda na po tayo.
So may 500 years na? More than?
More than
more than 500 years.
7th lifetime na po namin to. And as per yung mga spiritual advisors natin, ang first lifetime ko was the time of Nebuchadnezzar. And then followed by yung mga apparently on the dark side. So this is my second time to finally get into the light na talagang i-attempt for humanity.
So panahon pa ni Nebuchadnezzar at ni Solomon, no?
Yes po.
Alam mo, may mga umuugong-ugong na, pati ang Solomon's Gold nandito rin daw sa Pilipinas. So, yun dito sa mga istorya na nakapagbibigay naman sa atin ng empowerment sort of. Although na wala pa naman tayo nakikitang matibay na ebidensya tungkol dyan. Ano masasabi mo doon kahit paano?
Pagdating sa Solomon's Gold, I'll ask my assistant to get yung documents sa sasakyan. I can show you actually, like you're asking about Solomon's Gold. It's by chance, no? Nabitbit ko yung document kasi we were supposed to fight for 01-4 today.
Mm.
So nabitbit ko yung isang document, yung document ng bunker ng Solomon's Gold. So I can show you what's inside the bunker of Solomon's Gold. Pag makuha lang nila,
Sige,
kasi
sige, sige. Kumbaga, ano na natin,
hopefully
add-on.
naiabot sa akin within yung time frame ng pag-uusap natin. I can show you what's inside the Solomon bunker. Yung,
Okay. Sige, sige. Pinaka-add-on na natin ito for tonight.
ano,
Ayan.
kasi
Sige.
nabuksan eh. At
Search
saka
the time.
blessing in this guys, I was checking it last night. Nabitbit ko, hindi ko alam kung bakit nabitbit ko eh.
Ah, so, maraming fascinating stories na ngayon lang natin, ngayon lang nabubuksan. Kaya, sort of parang nandito na rin yung may knowledge and entertainment value pagdating ho dyan. Until such period na mapatunayan natin lahat. Magkaroon na tayo ng concrete evidence regarding the existence
True
of
po,
these
true.
so-called wealth. May mga nagsabi rin nga na yung maraming treasure dates back mga historical accounts, no? Now, siguro antayin natin kapag ano, just give me the cue bago natin tunguhan itong seal, unahin na muna natin yung tungkol sa Bretton Woods. Kanina sa opening, nasabi ko na magiging, kumbaga parang may sasantabi mo na lang yung halaga, yung intrinsic and extrinsic value ng gold, kung may 400 tons man yan or more than 400 tons, 400,000 tons, kung hindi dahil sa Bretton Woods. Tama ba ako dun sa aking opener na yun, Migz?
Yun nga, Ka-Anton, that's why we keep on telling people, no, that if you only know half of the story, lalo na yung claimants, if you only know half of the story, it's better for you to follow yung LOIs na nasa inyo para hindi tayo magkagulo. Because whether you like it or not, the 400,000 na sinasabi ng tao kasi is only half of the story. Kaya pag tinignan mo ang paperwork ng halos lahat ng claimant, it's surrounding a 400,000 na amount of gold that's supposed to be in truth initial daw po is 617,000 minus whatever Santa Romana and Marcos had between them as lawyers, so minus 192,000 that was shared among them as their lawyers, so pumapatak na 400,000 something. But in paperwork, as is with the paperwork that's in the global debt facility, it's more than 1 million metric tons. So partly because it's parsed. Ganong katalino si Jose Rizal at saka si Marcos to have come to the idea that they actually set it off in parsing of yung 600,000. If we see history and start off with World War One, no, World War One. When you start off with World War One in 1914, marami dito sa atin nagtitinda ng TOV or the Treaty of Versailles, which is actually part and parcel of what Miss Watson was talking about last time. Tinatanong niya tayo, is the gold purely heritage account? Is the gold purely only wealth of the nation, which is supposed to be ours, or is there another wealth because as part of what's in London, no, na sinasabi nga niya, we have galleon ships that have been trading off already. So if you try to see the history, na sinabi ko na rin to dati sa inyo, Ka-Anton, during the interview, if we start off from the very start, ang history kasi natin ng ginto is not only what the Sultanate of Sulu is saying, which is the 600,000. It's not only also what TVM is saying, which is the 600,000. We have to consider prior to World War II. So prior to World War II, that's the gold which is supposed to be from World War I, which is embedded in the TOV. No? So yung gold na embedded in the TOV, those are the gold that came from Germany and the European countries na dinala dito, which is separate from the gold that is part of yung Dragon family and which is separate also from the gold of the Sultanate of Sulu. Ngayon, nung pinagsama-sama ni Jose Rizal at saka ni Marcos yan yung totality. No? It just so happened, like we said, that Marcos was the last administrator, kaya siya natag na Marcos Wealth. But it's not Marcos Wealth. It's supposed to be the full total heritage account, which in other words, sa atin po, no? Kasi sa paniniwala natin bilang Pilipino, naniniwala tayo sa divino gobyerno, diba? Or the divine government, which is supposed to be encompassing all the gold, which is what we were explaining to you last time, ng yung kay Nebuchadnezzar. No? He's not a Christian, he's not even under the father that we know, pero siya ang naglagay. If you see the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar was assigned by the Lord to put all the gold wealth, or all the gold together in the wealth of the world. It was not Solomon, it was Nebuchadnezzar. Diba? That's why when he was dreaming about yung statue, tapos in-explain sa kanya ni David, ang sabi niya, di ba? The God of David is the real God. Because David was able to explain kung ano yung significance ng statue sa buhay niya. Ngayon, yung ginto na yon, on the physical aspect like you were asking, no? Which reminds me, Canton, congratulations. Kasi the first time we spoke, no? You told me, pwede bang wag natin pag-usapan ang spiritual? And yet, here we are now talking about the spiritual side converging with the physical side.
Yeah, yeah.
We cannot separate the physical side and the spiritual side. They have to be taken together. Kaya nga sabi nila, convergence. It's the same thing. Apart from convergence of the spiritual and the physical world, it's also be convergence of the East and the West.
Okay. Sige.
So the gold from the East plus the gold from the West were placed together, and apparently sa swerte natin, di ba? Because the Lord chose initially in the physical world, He chose Jose Rizal. Jose Rizal in context, in our lifetime, is supposed to be like Nebuchadnezzar. Siya ang naglagay ng lahat ng kayamanan para maging isa.
Okay.
No? And then, sinambot ni Marcos after as the sixth administrator. Though in the context of the Philippines kasi, di ba, in-explain din yan na reverse key order. Sa reverse key order, 3 lang ang pababa na sa triangle. So the wealth is coming back to 1. Kaya siya naging triangle ni David.
Yes.
When the wealth was going up, from yung single wealth na na-divide ng madami, lahat ng gumanap dyan spiritual. Kaya nga pag nabasa nyo yung mga nagtataka kayo ng bakit pagdating sa last will and testament, andun si
Bernardo Carpio.
Lola Sinupuan, andun si Bernardo Carpio, andun kung sino bang mga tao, in quotation, na engkanto sa atin. Diba? So on the physical plane, since nag-merge nga, si Jose Rizal was the first. Meaning to say, you cannot separate yung physical and yung spiritual. Because we all know na may talent din si Jose Rizal eh. Diba? Yung question nyo nga, you have a question on bakit kung saan-saan siya pumunta, ang dami-dami niyang ibulto na tinatanggap siya. Diba? If you try to see kasi history na bumalik tayo, he's not actually part of yung mayayaman, di ba? Hindi siya part nung sinasabing royal blood. Because if we see the physical aspect of history, the first person that we should be asking are not the historians. Ang pinakaunang tanungin natin, yung family ng Katigbak.
Katigbak?
Sa Batangas. Katigbak.
Bakit? Anong relation ng Katigbak?
Ang first love ni Jose Rizal, Katigbak.
Si Leonora Katigbak ba yan? Hindi.
Anong reason ng ayaw ng pamilya niya sa kanya? Jose Rizal is an Indio. Hindi nila same level. Diba?
Okay.
Kaya tama si Kaed, yung historian niyo from US, no, that he really fought his way to make sure that he would be in the level of the rich people so that he would be accepted. And the only way he could do that is to play his role kasi he was chosen to bring the wealth together. Ngayon, paano niya ginawa yon? Of course, if you try to see history uli, here comes si Tagliantaliano Maclod, di ba?
Mm.
Tinapon siya dito sa
Mm.
Borneo
Mm.
because of his being a PWD. Very special. Di ba? Hindi siya matanggap sa ano. Ngayon, he intervened and said, why don't we talk to all your relatives? Get all the gold. Kaya nga nag-smelting eh. We'll get all the gold, put it all together into a trust fund, and then eventually it would be open for the world. So he sat, if you try to analyze also based on documents, he sat as the Black Pope for him to be able to do this.
Sino? Si Taglian. Si
Si
Jose
Jose
Rizal.
Si Jose Rizal sat as the Black Pope for him to be able to put the world's wealth all together. Kasi kahit saan mo ang gulo tignan, ang pinaka mataas na nirirespeto during that time is ang Santo Papa. Diba? No matter what religion you have, they go back to the Vatican. That's precisely why yung on paperwork that's floating, it was Severino Santa Romana, aka Jose Rizal, aka Padre Diaz, who placed the wealth there. And then they hired Marcos, not actually hired kasi pinili din siya. There has to be divine intervention to make this kasi no matter how intelligent you are, no matter how gifted you are in the world, you would not be able to do whatever they attempted to do kung walang divine intervention. Di po ba?
Tama.
Kasi yun nga po eh, kung walang divine intervention, imposible. Kahit
So,
saan mo ang
in totality, mga gano'ng karami talaga ang nasa record? 400,000 nga lang ba? 617? Or
1.8 million.
Official yan? May talaan ng gano'n?
Officially, it's 1.8 million. Now, how can we say it's 1.8 million? Upon maturity, fast forward. Maturity started 2003 to 2011. Ngayon, grace period is 4 years, so 2015. In layman's terms, like we said to you before, ano yung 2015 na yan? That was the APEC meeting, where we held all the leaders of the world, diba? Pumunta sila dito. Ang pinaka-code mo is when Obama spoke. Diba? When he spoke, he said, we cannot wait for a single person and that single person to decide for all of us when we don't even know who that person is.
Alright. Bago natin yan, babalikan natin yung timeline na yan ng 2015. Pero bago ang lahat, kailan ba ito nagsimula at ano pong bang nire-refer doon sa nag-mature noong 2001? Ito ba may kinalaman doon sa Bretton Woods or anong relation na ito sa Bretton Woods para sa kalaman namin?
If we go back po, no, neither Jose Rizal nor Marcos were seated in any aspect of when Bretton Woods was built. Bretton Woods actually was yung seminar or yung talk nila in 1944. What was 1944 significantly for everybody in the world? It was actually the end of the World War. Diba? Just like World War I, World War II has to have compensation for everybody na natamaan. So, nung nag-usap-usap sila on how to come about things, they said that we would start with making sure that we have a single denomination to be used. So they bagged on the dollar, but kasi ang US ang pinaka malakas nung time na yon. But they said that all the countries, before they can print any money, has to make sure that when they peg it to the dollar is pegged on gold. So meaning to say, you cannot print your money without the gold. Yun ang kasunduan. So that in itself was already established. And if you see, ang nandun na umupo was si Carlos P. Romulo, which is being said by Rappler na fake news. But yung picture na yan will tell you it's not fake news because it was the DFA of the Philippines website ang nag-publish that Carlos P. Romulo was indeed there. Anong significance nun? On the sidelines, not all the countries of the world have gold. So, interjection, sino magpapautang? Diba? So sidelines, ang magpapautang, Pilipinas. Kasi nga, dinala na ni Jose Rizal dito yung ginto eh.
Ayun.
That's why, dinidebate din ni Rappler, fake news daw na ginawa ang IMF at saka World Bank nang dahil sa Pilipinas. Mali yun. Yun ang tinatago nila sa tao. Ginawa siya, because if you see the dates that these were made, it's exactly on the timeline of the Bretton Woods. Diba? Same timeline siya sa Bretton Woods. So, meaning to say, the IMF and the World Bank were really solely placed there to make sure that when we lend all this gold out, may assurance ka na ikaw talaga ang may-ari.
Yes,
diba?
yes, yes. So, dahil dito, no, dahil sa Bretton Woods na nagkaroon sila ng kasunduan na yung dollar would be pegged on the gold. Ang value pa nun is pegged on gold, $35 per ounce pa, no? At the time, ngayon, nasa 2,200 na yata ngayon ang value. So, lahat ng issuance ng US dollar ay backed by gold. Okay?
Supposed to be. Until 1972 na nag-ayaw na ang US kasi wala namang gold ang US. Ang gold nila, hiniram lang din sa atin, which is attached to the story of yung Twin Towers. No? But let's talk about the Twin Towers later anyway. And Fort Knox. Yung US kasi didn't have so much gold at that time and they could not print as much as they like. So, what happened was, tinanggal nila, ayaw na nila, sila ang umalis sa Bretton Woods. They like to peg their money on black gold or oil. So they're the only country in the world that doesn't have any backing of gold. No? Despite yung nangyaring yon, tinanggap natin. Anong nangyayari sa US? There's always a time na sabi nga nila, babagsak at babagsak yung pera nila kasi pegged siya on oil. So oil, much fluctuating kasi ang price niya.
And maidagdag ko dyan, Migz, I think, may nagsabi sa akin na that was the very reason kung bakit binaba ni Marcos ang martial law nang magsimula itong gamitin nilang petrodollar para makontrol yung gold na yan at yung iba pang mga asset. And para makontrol din yung impact. Although na-apektado nga tayo noon nung tumaas yung presyo ng langis dahil nga dyan. Imbes na sa ginto, ikontra yung halaga ng dolyar, ginamit nila nga itong petrodollar o yung petrolyo sa pakikipagsabwatan nila sa Saudi Arabia. Sabi, huwag ka magbebenta ng langis kung hindi dolyar ang gagamitin. Strictly, kukuha ka lang, bibili ka lang ng dolyar. Babayaran ka lang at tatanggap ka lang ng dolyar. Kaya yung mga bansa ay nagpumahog na magkaroon ng reserve ng dolyar para pambili nila ng hindi na ginto. Okay? And madagdag ko pa rin, Migz, na ang involvement ng Pilipinas daw dito sa Bretton Woods bago pa man ito ganapin ay may kinalaman daw dito si Manuel Quezon. Dahil may pinapirma si kay Manuel Quezon doon sa Amerika na hindi natin alam kung ano, pero mukhang batid ni Carlos Romulo ang mga nangyayari. Kaya si Carlos Romulo, hindi masyadong nakapwesto na doon sa United Nations, although siya isa sa mga pioneering members. Dahil nga mukhang nosy. No? Tinututukan yung journalist ito eh. And sa dahilan ng yan, may mga umuugong-ugong din kung bakit hindi na nakabalik ng buhay rito si Manuel Luis Quezon. Si Manuel Quezon, nung nandoon siya sa Amerika, ay nakabilit siya sa Waldorf Astoria lang naman. Although paid by the Philippines. Philippine National Bank ang nagbabayad sa stay ni Manuel Luis Quezon doon sa New York, sa Waldorf Astoria, at habang tinatahi itong Bretton Woods. So bago pa man ganapin ito, alam na ni Manuel Luis Quezon, pero hindi niya na nakita yung produkto dahil patay na siya. At hindi na siya nakawin ng buhay dito sa Pilipinas. So may mga angulo dyan. Now, To the point na gusto mong i-interject kanina, please. Kung naalala mo pa.
Yun nga po. So, during that time that they were signing off everything, on the other side of the world, nag-usap-usap itong si Asia, no? Yung Asian countries started to talk to include, if I'm not mistaken, Australia and New Zealand and the other adjacent countries in the Pacific, which is known as the Baguio Convention of 1950. So si Baguio Convention of 1950, if you try to check now, kasi recently lang nila ina-upload, no, ang mga pictures of the conference, you will find out that our president then, si Elpidio Quirino, said that they were planting the seeds, hoping that even if they were no longer alive, we, the surviving Filipinos, would be able to take shade in that tree. Hindi lang shade, you'd also pick fruits. Because this 1950 is actually the first APEC. Anong APEC? Ang una kasing pinautangan natin, yung mga Asian countries, no? And including those countries, until such time that we actually went to about 72 countries in total initially na pinautangan, no? On secrets, with coded in secrecy, LOI, precisely why nakikilaban niya tayo, dapat may FOI na. It's about high time that the first thing we should do is actually have FOI, or freedom of information. Let's do away with the LOI so that we and all the Filipinos who are beneficial owners should know the truth. Kasi as far as we're concerned, the whole world is talking about the money, they know more about us, tapos tayo dito, unaware tayo ng kung ano ba ang katotohanan. Kaya yun lang din ang pinaglalaban namin. We should start telling the people the truth, whether they believe it or not, it's still the truth. Tatanggapin nila sooner or later because it's the truth, diba? Ngayon, yung APEC meeting na yan, nag-expound. Remember?
Okay.
So si APEC,
6 years later after the Bretton Woods Agreement,
yes,
no?
1950.
So yung mga bansa na walang ginto, noong 1950, nag-convene sila sa Baguio.
Convened in Baguio. Yes, yes.
Para mapag-usapan kung anong i-distribute nila, magkano mapupunta sa mga bansa na walang ginto. Tama ba ako doon?
Yes, yes. So that they can start printing yung pera nila. Ngayon, ang ano naman ang significance niyan sa atin? Ka-Anton, you've interviewed so many keepers and so many claimants. Nakita nyo, apart from Iraqi, andito Zimbabwe at kung ano-anong pera. First printing is in the Philippines, like I said before. Why? That's part of yung kasunduan, no? Pauutangin kita ng ginto para makaprint ka ng pera mo. Basta ang kasunduan natin dito, ipiprint ko na in advance.
Yes.
Yung buong utang mo plus interest, and then as soon as it matures, I can bring that out and you have to pay that as is.
And then for that reason, tayo lang yata o dalawa lang sa buong mundo na merong printing machine ng pera. Isa dun sa Inglaterra at dito sa Pilipinas.
Sa Delarue po, France. That's a Delarue machine.
Delarue.
Yes, a Delarue machine for printing, correct po.
So, maging ang Japanese yen, dito rin daw piniprint.
Yes. So, yung initial na 72 countries na yun po, ang talagang may license tayo to print.
Ilang
so
countries?
That's 72 currencies.
72 currencies, 72 countries. Yan yung mga unang mga batch ng mga pinautang.
Correct. Kaya precisely din, meron tayong uncapped dollar. Diba?
Okay, sige.
Kasi kasama pati si US na umutang. Yun yung nilipat doon sa Fort Knox at saka doon sa Twin Tower.
Sige, mamaya.
So, nung binabawi na natin, nagkagulo na naman sila. Diba?
So, 1950 na, pagkasunduan yan, nag-imprenta dito sa Pilipinas. Okay.
So, nag-imprenta. So, after sila nag-imprenta, pagdating ng time, pataas ng pataas yung gold, nag-aayaw na silang magbayad. So, the first to go out, na sabihin, ayoko na sa mga kasunduan, was the US. Diba? So, yun nga, ginawa niyang gold. But since that happened, ang alternative ni Marcos was to do the martial law, as you said. Kasi sa martial law, nag-i-intervene na rin si Aquino as a puppet of the US. No? Kaya saan ka nakakita ka, Anton, na nahuli ka because of treason and whatever na sinasabing NPA sa kanya, ganito, di ba? He was already in prison. Yet, anong nangyari sa kanya? Saan ka nakakita na in-extradite, hindi lang siya, kung hindi yung buong pamilya niya, papunta ng US? Di ba? Only because he and Marcos were very close and Marcos wanted him to actually replace him sooner or later. Yun lang kasi, he opted to be a puppet of the US. Yun yung pinakamalaking problem. But when he left, saan ka nakakita? Bayad lahat, di ba? Nilipad pa siya ng Philippine plane. Bakit yung mga preso natin dito hindi makaalis ng ganong sistema? What do you have na so special ka na pinaalis ka? Di ba? Kasi nga, Marcos was hoping that he would change his mind because he's one of the brilliant people that he has really trusted to take over whatever he has planned for the Philippines. And yet, hindi nga nangyari yun. So, pagdating ng 1980s, actually 1979, I go back 1979. 1979, he left the country already. Ang umupo na, clone na niya. Kaya nga, inopen niya ni Principe. He said that there were two Marcoses, which is wrong. Inopen din niya ni si Queen Helen Baginda. She said there's actually 7, which is also wrong. There are 7 clones and the original is the 8th. You can open one of the persons, I think just died recently. Pag tinignan mo ang Facebook, he tells you really explicitly that Marcos hired him to be a clone. May mga pictures siya ni Imelda, kasama niya. Kamukha naman talaga niya. But then, he's, I think, the 6th out of yung 7.
Okay.
So may numbering sila. The one who died with lupus in Hawaii is actually yung tinatawag nilang the barber. So cremate nila agad siya kasi pag iniwan siya na for bringing home, makikita na yung cadaver niya is not his height, not his shape, not his anything. So they had to make sure na cremated siya, tapos wax na lang ang inuwi. Diba? Para disimulado sa tao. But he was out already in 1979.
Oh.
I am vouching for...
Ano naman ang pinagkaabalahan ng original na Marcos ng 1979?
He had to make sure that all the document-wise, this would all be placed together. So it was economic sabotage in its finest. In that aspect, I salute him. It was economic sabotage in its finest kasi he made sure that all the paperwork to include hindi separate. Yung 192 nila ni Severino Santa Romana was melted to be RPFM, meaning to say he donated it to the Filipino people and the world. Hindi siya pwedeng magnakaw. Wala namang ganong peg ng ginto ang Pilipinas sa coffer, di ba? Sa coffer ng Philippines. Yet, di sana mayaman yung pamilya niya. Kung binigay niya at iniwan niya nasakim siya, he had 192,000 metric tons to share between him and Santa Romana. Pwede niyang sabihin mismo na, kukunin ko na yung share ko, i-finalize ko to, kayamanan ko to. But he did not do that. Diba? He made sure that 192 was placed in banks for the benefit of the Filipinos. So he was working on all the paperwork for the trust fund.
Okay. From 1979 till
today.
So alive pa rin ang Apo.
Because whether we like it or not, tulad ng
Kasi sabi mo kanina, you can vouch.
Yes, I would. Why? Plain and simple. Let's use logic. Sabi nga ni Principe, ang nakatakda, walang makakapigil. I agree with that. Because on paperwork, it says the Queen has all the right, being 70 years, the oldest in the monarchy, for 70 years na nakaupo siya ang umupo na one and only secretary ng Trilateral Committee. Meaning to say, from the time it started na ginawa yung kayamanan na yan, hanggang ngayon, siya ang nakaupo. So who better can vouch for it except for the person who's seated in the Trilateral Committee. And according to paperwork, as soon as she declares about the wealth being owned by the Filipinos and who the administrator is, automatically she has also to say that Marcos still alive for Marcos to explain what he did. So if that is on paper, I'm pretty sure he's still alive, because without that, they cannot have a completion of everything that was set up. Hindi po ba?
Tama,
Kasi
tama.
sabi nga, ang nakasulat, ang siyang mangyayari. Ang
Mm.
nakatakda, ang siyang mangyayari. So if that's on paperwork, it has to happen.
Mhm.
Because if he's already dead, anong saysay ng hinahabol natin ang lahat ng yan, patay na pala siya.
Oh, kasi sino ba naman ang makapagpapaliwanag kundi siya lang din. And
Correct.
alam mo, nagdududa ako nung umupo si Cory, ang inatupag kaagad yung Marcos Wealth, di ba? Pero nagdududa ako, sa tingin ko, hindi sa superficial level, pinai-impress
That's
lang tayo na Marcos Wealth ang hinahabol. Pero ang duda ko, ito talaga ang kanilang hinahabol. Gusto nilang malaman.
hindi po.
Tama ba ako?
Alam niya kasi puppet nga siya ng US eh. So they have paperwork that's actually coded in secrecy. It says there on paperwork also, no, that the administrator should be seated as a prime minister. What did they change first? The constitution. If they did not change the constitution, then automatically may prime minister tayo nakaupo. But
Tama.
since they changed it in 1987, ang hirap ipalipat back to federal. Kaya nga nagkakagulo tayo. Everybody was hoping with their highest hope, since si Tatay Digong is actually pro-FM, that he would really go for RevGov and the federal government.
Mm.
Unfortunately, with all his kayabangan, on the onset po siya, na inaway niya lahat ng UN, ng US, at kung sino man nandyan, when the US invited him sa talk ni Biden, what was his speech? I am sorry, I was not able to do what he was supposed to do. Why explain to the US that you were not able to do that? Diba? So meaning to say, in between the lines, he was not able to deliver. Yet, balik ulit tayo
According to
dun
the
sa
desires of the
Senate ko.
US, ano yung hindi niya na-deliver? Yung desire ng mga Amerikano?
No,
Yung gusto ng mga
yung
Amerikano?
magkaroon ng federal government.
According kaninong wishes yun?
Speech ni PPRD. Doon sa in-invite sa meeting ni Biden.
Okay, teka
Kaya
muna.
nga nagulat lahat ng tao, why was he explaining?
Okay, bago natin balikan yan, nung 1950, maraming mga bansang nangutang, umabot na sa ilang bansa ang total na accumulate na mangungutang o yung mga
Ang
nagpautang
total
natin.
po, on
Sige.
paperwork during that time was 72 countries. Tapos naging 74 eventually. But on paperwork now, dahil nga nagkahiwa-hiwalay na yung mga country, it's supposed to be 272 countries na may utang sa atin. And if you see, yun din ang patungo ng claim ni TVM. There are currently, according to yung mga pinagsasabi nila ngayon, 239 daw na countries na nag-signify already na kasama nila. And he's going to be crowned on May 2 na move from April 22. And yet, if you try also to see on paperwork, these countries are the same countries that were invited in the APEC meeting of 2015. So if you like to see exactly how many arrived to come to the Philippines, that's exactly how many countries owe us. Yun po.
And up to now, unsettled pa rin, ano? Wala nga sa
Lahat
settled.
naman po. Kasi analyze niyo po. You started off yung first na mga utang nung, sabi niyo nga, si Manuel Quezon, ang first na mga pinautang, ang gold po is $3.52 per troy ounce. It ended during the time of Bretton Woods and Marcos at $35 per troy ounce. Magbabayad ka ngayon ng utang mo at nag-start ng maturity that was around $1,300 to $1,500 per troy ounce. Who would be able to pay? Yun yung question.
Ilang fold
diba?
na yan.
Kaya nga, Kaya nga nung time ni Trump, nung nagmi-meeting ang UN, he also declared something. Try to pull out a video. He says it's only fair na dapat daw $1 is pegged to all yung pera ng tao, tago 1:1 already. He said that. That was a code. Because on paperwork, supposed to be $1 is not supposed to be 1 peso. It's 1 peso is equal to $19.
Uy. Yun
That's
talaga.
on paperwork. But as far as we're concerned, tuloy ko sabi, no, who would accept that a small country like ours owns everything already and is
Yeah.
richer than the world?
Okay.
Yet, if you try to see yung pandemic,
Before we delve into that, ito muna, tapusin muna natin itong Bretton Woods, nagpautang sa mga bansa. And kailan dapat ito nag-mature? And anong relationship nito dun sa pagbagsak ng Twin Towers?
ang lahat ho yan supposedly nag-mature na ng 2015 maximum, that's including the grace period. Now, as for the Twin Towers, if you try to see in between, I mentioned that also before with the story I told you about the lady from Bulacan. Siya ang umupo ng time ni Marcos na gumalaw ng kayamanan. Si Mami Ilaw.
Mami Ilaw.
Mami Ilaw. Oh, di ba? I told you about that story, saying to you that during that time, they sent her to Europe to enter a course na talagang on banking lang. And then when she came home, ang role lang niya for the Philippines is to bring a gold certificate together with 1 gold bar, papautang niya sa mga bangko. Pupunta siya, pwede ba akong umutang in behalf of the Philippines? Pag utang natin, syempre may ginto ka, papautangin ka, diba? O anong ginawa ni Marcos? He did not spend the money, he did not bring it back to the government. Kaya nga sinasabi lang magnanakaw siya. No, on paperwork, he deposited yung loan na yan back doon, kasama doon sa ginto. Why? Jose Rizal changed the banking law that says if the person owns more money than the bank, then he owns the bank. So since nag-mature na din lahat ito, nag-claim ang matanda. Sabi niya, paano yan? Pati bangko sa atin na. Bukod sa loans na nag-mature, claim na rin namin yung mga bangko. What did they say? What did the country say? No. We still do not accept that. So what happened in between? To prove his point, nagkaroon ng Twin Towers and all of this together with yung pagbenta ng Lehman Brothers. Because Lehman Brothers is already ours. So he sold Lehman Brothers. What happened to Lehman Brothers after bumagsak ang economy ng US? That's the same time that they built BRICS. And in BRICS, sino lang ba ang hindi kasali nung una? US. Diba? Lahat ng countries na nakapeg sa gold pa rin ang pera nila had to sign. Except US. They only agreed when? Madaling tignan. If you see your green dollar before, kailan tayo nagkaroon ng blue dollar?
Blue dollar? Meron ba lang?
Ilabas, kung may kaibigan kayo, lalo si Kaarto, maraming kaibigan sa labas. Pwede bang humiram ng $100? So, yung $100 is blue already, not green.
So anong significance nun?
Significance nun. The blue dollar is already UST, not already Federal Reserve note. Yun yung tinatanong ni Kaarto. When I know that the US is pegged already with the UST, then that is a very big sign. So you only have to know the year kasi binigay ko na yung stipulations. That means that blue dollar is pegged on gold. Sinong nagpautang? The Dragon family. Para magka-print sila ng blue dollar which is pegged on gold.
Okay, sige. Very interesting. Now, nasabi mo kanina na ang maturity sana ay noong 1995 ba o 2015?
2015.
Maximum, ano yung 1995? Yun naman yung early maturity noon. Tama ba ako doon?
No.
Meron kasing
If
1995 and then may 5 years extension pa daw. Kaya pumasok
ano
man
po,
to.
for 4 years lang. Based on paperwork, 4 years lang po ang grace period. So ang
Okay.
maturity po ng lahat, if I'm not mistaken, no, if my memory still serves me right, 2001 to 2011.
Okay. So noong
That
2015,
includes
wala
what
nagbayad, nagkaroon ng APEC summit. Ibig sabihin from 2015 onwards up to this moment, ay free-falling na lang lahat.
supposed to be. Apart from the fact na balik tayo sa gold. Sino ba ang nagbigay ng permit pagdating sa treasure hunting? Only the time of Marcos, right? And then pagdating sa gold loot and everything na hinihingi ng mga country na gold namin yan, or whoever claimant there is, it stipulates sa law that you have actually 30 to 50 years. Marcos was the one who said, okay, sige, we will change the law so that you don't have any questions already. We will make it 100 years. Yung 100 years na yan, whether you like it or not, if you cannot find the gold is ours. Kailan nag-mature yung 100 years? 2019. What
2019.
happened after 2019? The pandemic.
Okay.
Oh. Kasi nga, yung cash natin and all the accounts, nag-mature na. Lahat ng gold, hindi na nila pwedeng angkinin kasi nag-mature na rin yung 100 years. So, di ba tulad ng sabi ko sa ikaw, tatlo lang yan. Commodities, gold, and the accounts. They have to be one.
Palagi ko yung commodities, yung mga bonds, wala na yan eh. Ewan ko lang
Wala.
kung mababayaran pa ba yan? Ako, Diyos ko po.
No. Kasi
Ha?
gumalaw kasi yung
Honor
mga
pa ba
tao.
yun?
If you see, doon pumapasok uli si Queen. Lahat ng yan was insured. Where? In Lloyd's of London.
Okay.
Oh. So lahat ng yan mature na din. Kasabay ng mga maturity na kung anong pinagagawa nila, insurance also mature the same time. Meaning to say, even if you do not have the physical, you have the insurance to pay you up to the same amount.
Nako.
Because it's insured.
Bagbagsak ang Lloyd's of London yan.
Di ba? So,
Okay.
whether they like it or not, it was economic sabotage in its finest.
Okay. Now, yung ating diniscuss ng pumihit ang Amerika ng direksyon from gold back to petrodollar back. Ngayon daw nasa third Bretton Woods na tayo since na ang dinideklara ngayon ni Putin ay nire-require niya yung mga currency ay backed by gold o yung ruble niya is backed by gold. Ito ba ay parang informal way of introducing us back to Bretton Woods agreement to its original form? Na parang kasi naririnig natin na kailangan gold back na ngayon ng mga currencies. So ano itong transition stage na nating tinatahak, Migz?
Based on so mga conspiracy theorists, no, they've finally caught up that itong war daw na to is for the third Bretton Woods agreement. No, the third Bretton Woods agreement started with BRICS, diba? Kasi lahat ng country nag-agree na magkakaroon ulit ng backing ng dollar. And then during that time, that was the same time that China actually brought out the renminbi. Bakit siya nagkaroon ng second denomination ng pera niya and currency while not using the yuan? Because they were thinking that during that time, they can already push the renminbi to change the dollar, the petrodollar. Yet, anong ginawa ng US? Nagkaroon na naman ng kung ano-anong war, nagkaroon ng war against China at dineclare ni Trump that all the businesses with China should already be cut off so that the renminbi cannot come into place. Yet if you see sa Philippines, Anton, may kakilala ka sa China Bank? May kakilala po ba kayo sa China Bank? Wala. Kahit wala po kayong kakilala sa China Bank, just go to China Bank and ask, can I open a Chinese foreign account? Pwede. Anong tatanggapin nila? Renminbi, hindi yuan. Bakit pwede na ngayon sa Pilipinas mag-open ng Chinese account?
Bakit?
Because they were pushing renminbi to change the dollar at that time.
Hmm.
Pero since hindi nangyari yon, stipulations nila ngayon by yung rubble. No, matalino
Ah,
ang mga Chinese. If you see
hmm.
what's happening in China now, diba yung ginagawa sa Shanghai na nagkakagulo yung mga tao, it
Oo.
halted, it stopped all production level sa
Hmm.
China. Meaning
Hmm.
to say, in 2 to 3 months, gugutumin na talaga ang West kasi they have nothing to give when it comes to food.
Ah. Kung
Hmm.
dati nga tama ka, no? Dati kasi madali lang mag-open ng dollar account, di ba? Ngayon
Hmm.
pala pwede na ang RMB. Okay, okay
Oh,
na
diba?
development yan. So, itong BRICS, yun yung may binubuo ng 6 na bansa, di ba? Brazil, Russia, India,
Mhm.
China, and South Africa, yun na yung mga nagkasundo para
Nung una,
alternative doon sa SWIFT system
yes,
ng Amerika na kung saan ngayon
yes.
ay napapanood natin na sanction ng Russia, hindi na nila pwedeng gamitin yung SWIFT pero napakadali para sa kanila na
Oh,
nakahanap ng alternatibo katulong ang China at na napapapalitan nila yung kanilang mga foreign reserves at foreign mga transactions na yan na ipapatuloy nila dahil nga dun sa alternatibo na nakaset up na pala. Tama ka, Migz. Ano? Nakaset up na kaya
kaya,
hindi na nahihirapan ng Russia dito sa mga
mhm.
sanction na ito. Sa halip, ay bumubumirang doon sa
Kaya,
Western nation.
if you analyze po, no, let's say we do not know anything about the wealth, we don't know anything about yung pera, ganyan. If you analyze, mukhang pinaglalaroan nila tayo eh. They all know what's happening and they've actually decided on what to happen because if you notice, wala nang SWIFT since last year. SWIFT is non-existent. That's why everybody was pushing for the QFS.
Okay.
O bakit nabalik tayo sa SWIFT na sinasanction sa na bawal ng gumamit ng SWIFT?
Ah,
Oh, for the people who do not know about SWIFT and QFS, tatanggapin mo na lang eh. Ganun ba? Okay. Pero pag inanalyze mo, sandali, wala naman ng SWIFT eh. We've heard on that part. We're already in QFS. So anong sanction ng SWIFT ang sinasabi nyo? Di ba?
so,
So
ibig
it's
mo
just
sabihin ito, pinaglalaroan nila tayo sa anong dahilan, Migz?
like you said, di ba? It's still really a matter of good versus evil. Or what we say, the cabal versus whoever's supposed to be seated in the white side, who's supposed to be the administrator of the wealth. Because whether we like it or not, the cabal will always try to hold on their fame and whatever capacity they have to rule and not really just give it on a silver platter and say, okay, sige, talo na kami, ito na. Diba? And still, if you try to see all the governments of the world, we go back to that clip of Prince Charles that you've always been playing. What did he say? Oh,
Mm.
if the governments of the world will not agree that the person who has these trillions and trillions of dollars at his disposal can actually access the money, then they in the private sector will actually rally to ensure that this person can have access and share it already with the world. Diba? So, questionable yung sasabihin mong si Prince Charles is actually with the cabal if he's saying that he's pushing that if the governments would not like to help that person, we will already help him. Diba? It's a different perspective, but if you think about it, like you said, you were asking also Principe. You were
Mm.
asking him kung siya lang ba o may grupong gumagalaw. I
Mm.
answered that already before. I
Mm.
told you that there are also the same like number of the gold, 1.82, 1.8 million light beings. They're called light beings who are working to ensure that this will happen in our lifetime. No?
And of
So,
course, paglilinaw na rin, Mix, dahil sinasabi nila, siguro, hinahabol daw ng ating programa, hinahabol ng ating mga tagapanood na magkapera sila sa individual na level. Hindi po, karamihan po na nanunood, sumusubaybay sa programang ito, ay after doon sa papagtagumpayan natin ang objective, ang goal. Hindi po doon sa magkaroon tayo ng pera, hindi yun yan ang ating prime objective, kundi para ma 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 maluwalhatian tayo o maluwalhati ang ating pakiramdam dahil napagtagumpayan natin itong struggle na ito. Still, dahil
Correct.
dinideprive nga yung anuman ang entitled tayo para na may kinalaman
Yes
dito
po.
sa WOTN, di ba,
Mm.
Mix? So, sa
Tama
ngayon,
tama po
paano pa
kayo.
tayo mababayaran kung ang mga magbabayad ay control ng black cabal o ng kabal? So, saan tayo maniningil nito, Mix?
Kaya nga po yun yung sinasabi ko po sa inyo dati din. Um, though the cabal is going through a step like the pandemic, the Lord is always 10 steps ahead of them because the pandemic was actually made sure, had made sure that everything will go faster for us. Kasi, like you said, it's not about the individual getting a portion of the wealth, though that is part and parcel of what has been placed in all the documents, individuals will really get. In a matter of sense, anong nangyari sa pandemic? Ang bilis ng paggamit ng mga cards. So everything now is online. So on the transition that we start giving out, it's already automated. You don't have to think of how it is going to be done because it's already there. Ngayon, pagdating naman dun sa mga magbabayad, if in case yung prediction natin ng the world will not have food anymore in 2 months, 2 to 3 months because of what China is doing, then automatically the countries have no other recourse except to make sure that they now admit that there is only one person who has access as an administrator to the wealth of the world. Yun lang yun eh. Kasi like Pakistan, nag-default na siya. They don't have money. Diba? In other countries, they're starting to default and say, oh, we don't have any more. And we were willing to go through everything because they cannot print. So meaning to say, when the world starts to be hungry, we start with feeding the world and making sure that they give us access to the accounts because they cannot have access unless they accept that you are the owner and you are the administrator and you're now ready to feed the world because the money, whether we like it or not, also as Filipinos,
Mm,
primary beneficiary lang tayo.
mm,
But secondary beneficiary, it says on stipulation, is the whole world, diba?
mm,
Humanity as a whole. So meaning to say, whether we like it or not, the great reset will happen because they cannot pay, meaning to say we have to default on payments and say, okay, we will start with having zero. No choice ka din eh. Because if you force them to pay, who would like to agree with you? But
mm,
if you agree with them and say, okay, let's default and start all over, more likely you can come to a compromise and they will accept you. Diba?
mm.
Yun yung easiest way eh.
Kung ano nila siguro iregalo, no? Kaya,
Hmm.
kaya regaluhan tayo ng barko, regaluhan tayo ng armas.
Ano lang yun eh, hoping na magkaroon sila ng panibagong utang at panibagong contract.
Ayun,
Kasi
yun.
nasa paperwork din yan eh. Kasi kaya nga, uh, I was talking about yung APEC. The
Mm,
APEC, on paperwork, magkakaroon talaga ng piging. Kaya nga lahat ng mga claimant, may kanya-kanyang piging. Di ba? But on paperwork, after the APEC, they started to do Clark City. If you
yes.
see Clark City na ginamit ng quarantine offices at saka ginamit ng Asian Games,
Mm.
that was built solely for the piging. So that when the world leaders come, they are in secure place. You don't have to fly to Manila. You don't have to put them elsewhere.
Yes.
Security-wise, andun na.
Doon na, oo.
Kaya nga, hindi lang siya hotels. They're not
Mm,
only hotels, they have villas because whether you like it or not also, they do not come alone. They come with an entourage.
mm. Tama.
So, ayun. Kaya nga, binild yan. That was
So
built.
ibig sabihin meron ng anticipation.
Yes, yes,
Inaasahan na magkakaroon ng isang malaking piging,
yes.
magsisidatingan ng mga world leaders, although na ang
Correct.
ayan isasagawa, pino-project, no?
Yes,
Pino-project
yes.
natin na magaganap doon sa Clark. Pero
Yes.
magpasa hanggang ngayon hindi pa ito nagaganap dahil nga siguro may kinalaman ba itong mga pagpigil, pagpalag.
The first thing that stopped that from happening was actually the pandemic.
Pandemic
No?
and then sinundan ng Ukraine, ano?
Tapos sinundan ng Ukraine. Tapos ngayon, susundan na naman ng China. Tapos later on, they'd say, apart from climate change, food shortage, kasi wala ng food ang buong mundo. So tuloy-tuloy na rin. Di ba?
Eh,
Until,
ang problema nga, Mig, hindi natin makakain yung ginto daw. Siyempre hindi.
pero ang swerte po ng Pilipino, di ba? Ang Pilipino, mas swerte kasi kapitbahay mo, nagtatanim na mula nung pandemic, kanya-kanyang tanim yan eh. So, ibig sabihin, kahit walang dilata, may pagkain.
Ay, lumalangoy pa nga yung staff. Voluntarily, pumupunta pa sa
Voluntarily
baybayin.
pumapasok sa mga bangka eh. Di ba tulad sa Antique at sa hindi ka
Yes,
na
yes.
magpipit, tumatalon na sila eh.
Ay, may
So,
mga kakilala nga ako, walang hanap buhay. Lalabas lang nila yung lambat. Tapos, pagdating ng gabi, ihilain na lang yun. Kung ano makita, di ulam na. Yan nga lang ang ano natin. So, itong base sa Bretton Woods, base sa mga kaganapan ngayon, ano ang iyong pananaw, outlook mo dito bilang isang administrador? Mix.
one thing po, I mentioned to you, no, I wrote President Duterte, maybe 4 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, my last letter in quotation, because I was hoping that was my last letter. But with yung nangyari today, I'm hoping to have a follow-up letter maybe by next week. But going back to that letter, I explicitly said in that letter that if and when Bongbong wins, then automatically we will retract everything that we signed with the government to include the movement of the money. So, since sasakyan na naman mga tao kasi lahat ng tao based sa conspiracy papasok na ng Pilipinas ang pera. Tayo palabas. Kasi dati papasok ng pera. Remember with yung pinakita ko sa inyo na nagtatanong kayo, ano yung mga black screen na to? All the money we were trying to bring in. Pero whether we like it or not, kasi yung family ni Apo were the first people to block. And until now, they're still blocking. Kasi yung last word namin, kasi nga yung gusto namin ipasok was 943T, which is exactly on paperwork with the uncut dollars, so that we can start. They said that we cannot touch anything in BPI unless we ask permission from Irene. We already discussed with Lisa on the phone. I said that cannot happen because as far as I'm concerned, ang instruction sa akin, kailangan ibigay na sa tao. Diba? So, they asked me through their cousin Roland Fajardo na pagsabihan daw ako that I cannot move anything until Bongbong sits down. So my take also, if he sits down, I am pretty sure he will not give it to the people. So if he sits down, I do not like to move anything until he's not seated. I do not like to work with yung Philippine politics and say who to vote and who not to vote because that's a destiny. Bigay yan ng langit eh. If he lets Bongbong sit down, that's his destiny. Maybe, just maybe, para sa akin, open, ano yan sa atin eh. It's an eye-opener because a lot of people would like to vote for him because they think he's the key. Yet the question is now, the people would know he's not the key. Plus, ang pinakamalaking question kasi while we are waiting, are we as a nation ready? Hindi eh, we're not even aware. Di ba? We're not even aware. Ngayon, ang pinupush namin so that we become ready is apart from you telling people, even if they do not believe you, to at least spread the word and at the same time, ready yourself. Kasi sa ayaw at sa gusto mo, talagang mangyayari yan eh. Blessings will flow because as per the Bible, this is for the 1,000 years of plenty. Kaya nga sobra-sobra yung pera. Diba? It's also just the same with our stipulations sa government. If we actually were able to move the money na minumove natin since we told you, then the first thing we would be paying off just to show the world that you can move the money is the Philippine debt.
Yeah.
To tell them that, who in the world, sinong government or sinong tao ang makakabayad ng utang? Yun yung question nyo. Now, if it happened, tayo lang din ang pwedeng bumayad ng sarili nating utang, pera din naman natin. Diba? And on paper,
ibig mo sabihin na Migz, si Bongbong hindi siya angki, kundi baka maaaring maging balakid pa. Kung
I
ganun
am
lang
pretty
siya.
sure.
Ha?
Kasi kung siya nga ang susi, why would he be the first person to say that do not move anything without us sitting down? At kung siya ang susi, umupo na siya sa Senado. Anong hinihiling nung nanay niya when they came? Is for her to be seated as a president, or at least the Senate and the Congress help her move the money. He was in power. At the same time, I'm still in power now. Why can they not move the money if they're the key?
Tama ka dyan, tama ka dyan. Ni ang
Yun lang
lingas-ngas
ang
nga
question
wala,
ko.
di ba? Ni ang lingas-ngas tungkol dyan, wala nga tayong naririnig tungkol dyan sa kanila.
Actually, sabi pa nga niya, huwag maniwala pag sinabi yan. So,
Mm.
ibig sabihin, ang pinakaunang sinungaling, nanay niya. Because
Oo.
she came, nagpa-interview pa siya sa GMA at kung anong mga papel na pinakita niya, oh, this is the wealth and we
Mm.
can feed the world. Oh.
Mm.
So what happened to whatever she was saying? So it's either her or si BBM ang nagsisinungaling. Yun lang yun di ba? Kasi as far as they're
Napakalungkot.
concerned, sabi nila.
Ano sa tingin mo ang dahilan kung bakit pinagkikibit-balikat nila to?
Ang sa akin lang, I understand them. When I wrote me na nagpasintabi ako, based sa letter ko din sa kanila, I told them, I understand them. Being the first family, masakit sa'yo na yung tatay mo napakayaman, tapos yung pala, gumagawa siya ng paraan na hindi ikaw ang tigapagmana, kung hindi lahat ng tao sa mundo. Masakit yun. And he chose, no? It was a very big sacrifice on his side. He chose to do his mission instead of be with his family. So it's very hard for the child to accept pagdating sa psychology. That's understandable. Pero sabi ko nga sa kanila, hindi ba mas masakit para sa akin for me not to know who my parents was until I turned 39? Diba? And then to tell me na yung pinakamalaking responsibility na iwan sa balikat ko, kailangan ko nang i-face when I did not know anything about all of this. Yet when I started to analyze, it's beyond you. If you become selfless, if you become selfless and think about others more than you think about yourself, then you would understand what sacrifices he made. So as a father, I cannot talk about him because I've never met him physically, just like I told you, twice lang, astral projection pa. Yet, as the man who made all of this possible to be the father of the world, na mangyari ito para sa hindi lang sa sambayanan, kung hindi sa mundo, I salute him. And I will always fight for his vision and his mission.
Dapat lang.
Ngayon, pagdating naman sa kanila, siguro, it's a matter of time lang din na matanggap nila na it's beyond that. Kasi if you think also, gaano ba kalaki ang iniwan sa kanila? Diba? Tignan mo, tax na nga lang, bilyon.
Hindi na nila mauubos yun
How much is too much? Yun nga
Sila
Or
ng
how
mga
much is enough?
nila mauubos yun.
Tama
Pero
nga,
bakit,
di ba?
sakit pa niyan, ginagamit pa ng mga supporters niya yung issue ng WOTN para iboto siya.
Yun
Malaking
yan.
pagkakamali yun. Para sabihin
Diba?
lalabas ang pera kapag siya ang naging presidente, malaking pagkakamali yun. Baka lalo.
Malaki talagang pagkakamali po yun.
Mm.
No? So if you try to see also, sabi ko nga, on the analysis of being a child, maintindihan ko sila. But on the analysis of the wealth na iniwan sa inyo, hindi ba sobra-sobra na yun?
Tama.
Bakit hindi mo naging tignan in a perspective that you're not growing younger? Tumatanda na rin kayo. Siguro kung teenager ka, nasa point ka ng hindi mo maintindihan natin lahat. But you're already more than a teenager. Halos lahat sila magsisenior na.
Itong wealth na to ang makapag-vindicate dun sa pangalan nila na matagal nang sinisira. At ma-appreciate siguro ng ilang daang taon makalipas ang panahon ito kapag nakipagtulungan sila at tumulong sa pagbukas nito, mapapawi ho lahat ng mga pagdududa tungkol dun sa iniwan ng kanilang ama. Masakit din na kung ikaw ang matandang Marcos at ngayon pa nangyari sa iyo. Kumbaga isinantabi mo ang iyong tungkulin bilang Pangulo para alagaan lamang ang direksyon nitong kayamanang ito, and then sa bandang huli, Sasabihin pang ikaw ang magnanakaw. Napakasakit.
Magnanakaw.
Ngayon, huwag naman po sana na dalhin ng inyong ama ang lahat ng yan sa kanyang libingan at gano'n ang maging impression
True.
sa kasaysayan. Kaya siguro, kaya dapat marapat lamang na gumawa ng hakbang para ito ay mabuksan na at mag-enjoy naman ang ating ang humanity. Now, Mitch, may nabanggit ka kanina na ang Amerika ay wala ng pera at pinacilitate ng Dragon family nang sa gano'n itong blue dollar ay mapondohan in gold o mabackupan ng gold. Tama ba kung doon sa aking pagkakarinig?
Yes po, yes po. That's
Now,
correct. That's why the blue dollar na printed po is already under the UST or United States Treasury. Hindi na siya federal,
USD.
hindi na siya federal
So
FRM.
anytime nakikita mo na magko-collapse na itong Federal Reserve o collapse na talaga siya, nagsisikap na lang na bumangon.
Whether they like it or not, diba, they're the last person to accept, no? Yung last entity to accept na tayo talaga ang may-ari. How do we know that? Remember, in 1983, Marcos already declared that Asia was supposed to have an Asian dollar dahil dun sa 60 or 80,000, I'm not too familiar with yung exact, no, na 80,000 gold reserve natin, hindi reserve but yung gold niya na papautang niya dito to make the Asian dollar. So he declared that in 1983. It was the reason why they made sure that he would step down ng 1986 also. Apart from changing the constitution, they made sure that there would be no Asian dollar. Yet still, you can also double check that. Nasa books ni Seagrave, they declared that.
Yes,
Yet,
yes.
ang question is, after the US let Cory sit down, what happened to that gold? Kahit yun lang, yun na lang, yung ginto na yun, saan napunta? When in fact, ang hinihingi ng US, sana wag nang mag-Asian dollar, ipautang na lang sa kanila. Pero ayaw ni Marcos. He said no, because we are going to do the Asian dollar. That's the very main reason they wanted him out, because he also had a hearted, he wanted to push what's best.
Na-print na ba yung Asian dollar?
Po?
Na-print na ba yun? Na-print ba?
No.
Yung rainbow dollar.
Ang print was the rainbow dollar. The rainbow dollar is printed and is under 19 banks here in the Philippines.
Ayun.
Ready to be brought out to the people once they agree that the wealth is actually really owned by the Philippines. Naka-ready siya, printed out siya.
Ayun, yun. Magandang balita yan. Ano? Pag tinanong mo nga daw kay Alexa yun sasabihin ni Alexa, magre-rainbow dollar daw May ganun, may ganun ako napanood. May ganun akong may footage ako noon, kaya lang di ko pa na-upload yata tungkol din sa Alexa. Now, yung tungkol naman, balikan natin ulit yung Dragon family. Itong finaward sa akin ni Joel Ranche tungkol sa 5-star petal seals, purportedly, ito ay galing sa Dragon family, no? Alpha Omega Station, Red Dragon Horde Agency. Ano ang sa tingin mo ang authenticity na itong seal na ito? Ito ba ay may kinalaman dun sa pagpapautang? Ito ba ay fake? O
yun nga. Apart from the claimants, no, na talagang meron tayong keepers, meron tayong totoong holders, meron tayong totoong mga nakatabi dyan na account holders, keepers, and claimants, I do not believe, I'm really sorry, no, sa lahat ng mga followers ni TVM. I do not believe he's the real deal. Because for one, he actually has his office initially placed in Nevada, not in the Philippines. And if you try to see all his paperwork, napakagaganda ng pagkakagawa. Yet he does not have money. So who's behind him?
Saka diba? Yung pag-track nila sa history. Kasi Rizal naging Gregorio Aglipa sige.
I met him in Baguio City Hall. Nakita kami. Because he was claiming na dapat daw ibalik na ang buong Baguio sa kanya based on 01-4. So I saw him in the stairs. I went to him. I told him, hi, I actually know you as Alex Payatos na TVM. Nagulat siya. Tapos sabi ko sa kanya, well, on paperwork, TVM is a code, and TVM is not already owned by the oldest child as per paperwork, kasi title lang yon. Because as per paperwork also, the child, in quotation, is already legally dead. So whether it was transferred to him as a title or whether it's going to be transferred to someone else, like si Prinsipe ni Queen Helen, who's also claiming to be TVM, or whoever TVM is there na nakamatayan na ng matanda, it's a title. And if it was transferred to him, it only means na, ano yun patay na yung title na yon. So how can you claim that you're alive and say that legally, I'm alive, I'm here? You cannot. Diba? Ngayon, pagdating sa seal, yun nga kasi ang mahirap. Lahat ng mga keeper, like the US, they have a set of documents of everything. So the seal is correct because the seal is actually the seal of the Maywa family, which is shown on yung pinakita ko sa inyo. But on paperwork, hindi siya ang claimant Hindi siya ang karapat-dapat doon. Diba?
So itong intriguing ito, Migz, no? Nasa hawak-hawak mo yung seal, no? At leisure, ganyan. Paano naging Lee kung ang family name na ating name of interest is Chua? Ano ba ang relationship nito? Ito ba is Dragon family ba ito? Bagong lahat. Dragon family ba ito?
Yes po. It's the Maywa Dragon family. But if you try to see po, codes kasi lahat ang ginamit. It's not only Chua. It's Chua Tai Li.
Okay.
So,
Tai Li means the big, you know, in Thai is big Li. Okay.
So, Chua Tai Li ang ginawa niyang code. Ngayon, based on codex also, if you try to see, no, like I told you, he's not actually Chinese. He's Mongolian. But if you try to see world history, Mongolia used to own China.
Genghis Khan.
Mongolia is the owner of China. Kaya nga trinay nila i-cut off siya as the last emperor. Remember yung story ko sa inyo na tinapon siya sa Mindanao. Ang nakapulot, actually, family nila Duterte. So, it's a revolving story of everybody who's intertwined.
Pag-usapan natin yan eventually. Pag-usapan natin yan very soon.
We'll talk about that some other time. Ngayon, pagdating sa paperwork kasi, ang Dragon family can sign. Not only the Dragon family. The most important in that code, apart from the flower, if you try to see yung binigay ko sa inyo, there's an AK. It says AK and then a number. We go back. Ito yung very surprising.
KKK.
KKK. No, yung isang ganito po, yung isang square na rectangle po na binigay ko sa inyo, it has an AK number.
Ito lang napunta sa akin Ito lang.
I'll send it to you po. Okay, I'll send it to you. The AK number, itong pinaka-crazy thing. We go to aliens. Since you and Kaardo actually believe in aliens. The AK number is the AK number that's written there of whoever is going to sign. Yung AK is with the aliens because these AKs are actually situated in a place in Japan and they're 3,000 to 4,000 years old, physically still alive. So, lineage talaga sila. Ang coding nila, lahat may AK number. Marcos was AK111.
So, alien din si Marcos?
Yes. Partly.
So,
based din sa statistics.
So, yung assurance ng longevity niya, nandoon pa rin kung sasabing buhay siya ngayon dahil siya ay nasa lineage ng mga aliens. Ganun ba? And how about Jose Rizal?
Yes,
qualified po siya? Okay.
But
so,
as far as I know, Jose Rizal is or was 356 years old when he passed away. That includes his age prior to him being Jose Rizal. Remember, I showed you for physical completion lang ng meron tayong referencing. Yung kay Jesara tsaka ni Sarah. Remember?
Mhm.
Anong account yon, Ka-Anton?
Hindi ko ma-recall, hindi ko ma-recall.
Yung account na ginagamit nila sa Nisara and Jisara is named after Saint Germain.
Yes,
Saint
yes, yes.
Germain,
Tama.
remember? Oo. Siya ang pinaka pwede natin gawing example. Because on books, there are pictures of him in a different century compared to a different century with the same features that he never changed.
Mhm.
Oh, siya ang pinaka pwede nating kuning example. Kasi yun, talagang stipulated on books. Oh,
Mm.
kasi ang tao, to see is to believe. Anong proof mo? Di
Sabi
ba?
ni
Oh,
Mahal,
yun.
to see is to believe.
Sabi niya,
Ito,
anong proof mo? So, pwede natin gamitin si Saint Germain. Si Saint Germain, if you try to see from when he was born to the time that he was traveling, he never changed his face.
tama, tama, tama.
Tumigil
Sinasabi
lang
nga,
sila
immortal pa.
when people already were asking, bakit hindi yata siya tumatanda? Bakit 100 something na siya? Bakit gato? Nandyan pa rin siya. That's only the certain time that he stopped going out publicly.
Mm.
Yet, it's the account of the US.
Alright.
Oh.
Now, itong aking next question, ano,
Mhm.
namamangha ako dahil nakikita rito yung 5 petals, no? And yung sa bagong peso natin, yan din yung nandiyan dyan. Although
Yes
na
po.
hindi siguro parehong bulaklak, pero 5 petals din, no? Meron naman sinasabi, 5 leaf clover,
Mhm.
swerte daw yan. So ano ang significance kaya nito? Anong pakahulugan nito? Bakit gumamit din ng similar o similar emblem or symbol? Ano ang may pakahulugan kaya yan, Migz?
Hindi ho siya clover. It's really a five petal na flower.
Mhm.
Or what we call penta, penta flowers.
Okay.
On the Chinese setting, and not only the Chinese setting, also with Russia and Germany and Japan, lahat ng mga may stake on the wealth. They believe in the five flowers, signifying hope, charity, and whatever benevolence out there. So, yun ang belief nila. So, with that belief, it has come to be coded that this is one of the insignias that we will use to make sure that the wealth is there. It's also the same reason why if you try to see yung Pentagon, it's almost shaped the same thing, nilagyan lang siya ng lines. Because the Pentagon is actually the keeper or the watchdog of the wealth, whether they like it or not.
Whether we
Diba?
like it or not.
Whether we like it or
Kasi
not.
we don't like it that much kasi dapat
Yeah.
ang mga keepers mga Pilipino rin. I
Hindi.
see.
Kasi yun yung question. Bakit? Sabi nila, oh, bakit may ganyan? May foreigner and so forth. Ganyan. Let's take it logically on a perspective of being physical. If you claim that you are a king, if you claim that you are a queen and you own the wealth or even a princess or whatever title you have, who bestowed the title on you? Yun yung question. For the whole world to accept that you are now a royal, who bestowed that title? Diba? If your title was bestowed upon yourself just because you wanted that title or because an elder of ours said that you are now the queen and you are now the king and you are now the prince, the question is, will the world in the physical form accept yung title mo? Hindi eh. Diba? Hindi nila tatanggapin. So, more likely, like I said again, logically, uh, yung queen who is seated, whether we like it or not, again, with all the conspiracy theories that she's a reptile, she's this, she's that, she has the sole authority worldwide. Isipin nyo, sino worldwide ang may authority to declare na tatanggapin? Di ba? Siya lang. If she declares the Filipino, whoever that Filipino is, to be the owner, should anybody question her with her authority? Tatanggapin siya ng mga countries and
Yes.
whoever's there seated. Because by law, that is what is.
Hindi.
Diba?
Tsaka bukod yan, di dapat may patutuo.
Yun, may
Kaya lang
patotoo.
naman may patotoo, 'di ba? Hindi lang
Oo,
yung
may patotoo. Hindi mo
para bang
pwedeng i-declare yung sarili mo. Tapos sabihin mong akin na yan. Sinong maniniwala sa'yo?
correct, correct. Meron
Diba?
nga daw queen diyan pumunta ng Rizal. Sabi kanya na raw 'yun, surrender na raw ang Rizal sa kanya. Ba't
Ay,
ganun nga naman?
ito.
Tingnan mo naman ang kasapangan ng mga tao nga. Kaya nga dapat ipamigay. Hindi yung
Mhm.
papunta sa'yo. Now,
Correct, correct.
isang oras na kalahati na tayo, Mix. May nagtatanong kasi dito, may nakatanggap akong text, no?
Mm.
Sabi, pakitanong kay Ma'am Mix, matutuloy ba ang eleksyon?
I'm hoping, no? Beyond hope. Ito, honest opinion ko. I'm really hoping because I've already signified to the government ever since Tatay Duterte has sat that he would already declare that we would be the prime minister and the federal government would change. There are video clips that surfaced about me talking during yung mga federal government talks because he gave me a go signal to already say to the barangay captains about the federal government. I've already gone out openly to tell them, you know, about what we're going to do and what's going to happen. So I'm hoping beyond hope that finally he really declares with RevGov and then let us sit down so we can already implement everything. But in case that is not what the father likes and there is an election, as I said earlier, I would not like to work with Bongbong. I am not telling people to vote who I am telling to people vote for whoever you like, no? Kasi destiny yan. If the Lord wills it that he's sitting down, then it is a transition that we are now going out. We will go first to feed the world, come back when the Philippines is ready. It is heartbreaking on my side because I've always chosen to have the Philippines first. But if that's not what the Father likes, then so be it. Pero yun nga, hope beyond hope. If we start here, then thank you, Lord. Pero kung hindi, then we are forced to go out first and then come back at the right time.
Okay. Well said, well said. Maraming salamat kay Mabel Mabuti for her super sticker, 25 Hong Kong dollars. Maraming salamat, Mabel. Napakabuti mo nga. May katanungan pa rito sa text number 0927-82266XX. Pakitanong, nababahala siya dahil may mga umuugong tungkol sa digmaan sa Ukraine, tapos yung mga economic collapses, ano po ba ang nasa likod na to? Parang lahat ng mga bansa ay parang may destination of war, parang World War III na. Sino bang nasa likod niyan? Yun ang kanya.
As to sino ho ang nasa likod niyan, let's take it in a perspective of the spiritual plane. Sorry po, no? But if you see, it's really a matter of good versus evil. Of course, since we are declaring that the money and everything going to happen is for the 1,000 years of plenty, sino ang magpipigil kung hindi yung nasa ilalim? Diba? Whoever's working for yung nasa ilalim, syempre pipigilan niya as much as possible. But like borrowing yung word si Principe, ang nakatakda.
Yun ang hirap
If the
talaga
Lord,
nitong ating tinatalakay, Migz, dahil nga napakalawak ng dimension. Kumbaga sa scale ng 0 to 100, talagang nasa 100 tayo. Kasi we have to consider yung mga spiritual side and then yung physical side. Tama nga yung sabi mo kanina, paano natin ito mapapag-converge. Now, finally, lastly, ready na ba?
before yung last, may sisingit lang po ako.
Sige, please.
As to the war, no? As to the war, I trained with a Filipina from Bicol. You can search for her name. If you search it, then good for you. Maybe it was meant to be. But this Filipina is spiritually so much inclined that she was accepted and is accepted until now as the mother of Moscow. She has a bust in the middle of Moscow and is actually an advisor of Putin. So if that was happening in the other side of the world, that means that with all the prayers, if the Lord willed it to happen, there's a reason. Yun lang ang akin.
Buhay pa ba
Because,
itong Pilipina na to?
yes po, she's still alive. She was the one who was teaching me about quantum physics, of quantum jumping, of all those sorts. She's still alive. Every time she's here in the Philippines, she only stays a matter of 3 months. She has to be fetched by the government because they like her there more, being the mother of Moscow. And if you try also to analyze a few years back, Putin actually already converted back to Catholic Episcopal. So he has pictures in the web that he has been declared as part of the Catholic Episcopal Church again. So if he's a spiritual person, that means the Lord willed it to happen. That means there's a reason for it to happen.
Okay. Now, ready na ba yung ano? Ready na ba yung ating bunker, yung picture? Para sa
Sabi ko, kaanto
diba?
na,
Sige, sige, sige. Malamig talaga yata ngayon sa Baguio. Buti pa dyan, ano ha?
palamig-lamig po konti.
Ah, ayan. Sabi naman ni Ballistic Mind, tama ka. Si BBM, sabi nilang pinakauna na president aspirant afraid of... Napunta tayo. Ayoko naman gano'n ng politika. Magandang gabi po, Kanto. Sabi ni Balakat. Uy, mga Balakat. Uy, Dio. At Migz, tanong lang po kung totoo po ba ang nanghiram ng 3 trillion US dollars worth of AU ang isang bansa para mag-print ng fiat money sa Pinas pero di na naibalik? Anong bansa ba yan na nangingutang daw ng 3 trillion US dollars worth of gold ang isang bansa para mag-print ng fiat money?
If I'm not mistaken, sana nasa same wavelength tayo. That's actually the US. When the APEC happened, nagdock ang MS Washington, if I'm not mistaken, in Clark during that time. And then Obama went up to Baguio to talk to the elders kasi humiram sila na 9 metric tons of gold. That was to print. Sorry ka, Anton. I'm checking yung paperwork ko. I think I left it at home.
Sige
Sorry.
lang, okay lang.
Ito
Walang
sa bahay
problema.
lang. I-send ko na lang sa inyo.
Sa susunod
Kasi
na lang.
yes po.
Sige. And
Pero
sabi naman,
yung sa question niya, that was during the time of Obama.
nung 2015, ang utang.
Yung nandito sila.
Ayan na.
Sila sinakay doon sa sinakay po yun doon sa MS Washington, kung di ako nagkakamali, sa Clark. Tapos, yan.
Ayun.
Hindi na sa bumalik.
Tama-tama si Leo, taga Mabalacat, Pampanga yan. Ronilo Malabad, Kanton, pwede pa kita kay Ma'am Migz kung alam niya ang tungkol kay Queen Romana ng Canada. Ano nga ba ito si Queen Romana? May idea ka? Kung wala naman wala naman problema
Ano po? Marami ho kasing nabigyan ng paperwork, like I told you, remember po, na vinouch for nung isang kaibigan nyo na nasa iglesia. So based on paperwork, there are a lot of people who really have documents na nag-stipulate na ito ang iniwan sa'yo, but sad to say, that most of them were actually used as decoys. That's a term that they use. So decoy po sila so that they can actually make sure that yung tao is supposed to be hidden in secrecy. But just like I also told Princess Elizabeth, I am really sorry, the reason why she could not be able to touch her account later is those paperworks based on LOI and the Code of Secrecy, may clause kasi siya na nakalagay, no solicitation clause, meaning you cannot solicit to make sure that you can work on your paper. At the same time, you cannot solicit people to help you and work on your paper. Since pinagalaw niya doon sa mga nagsabi sa kanya na umupo ka na lang dyan, magpaganda ka, tapos balikan ka namin, yun ang mahirap. Yun ang sinasabi ko sa tao. As much as possible, follow your LOI kasi nakalagay doon. There's a certain time for you to bring that out. Diba? Hindi mo pwedeng angkinin kasi sa sarili mo. Though I am sad for her doon sa aspect na yon, but like I said, buti nakikinig si Karik, no? You have paperworks, lahat ng ginamit kasi. They have paperworks that says that they will have a trust fund. They are still entitled to that trust fund. So, kung ano ang kay Juan, kung ano ang kay Maria, you will get your share. But please, for as long as yun na lang hinihiling natin. Follow what's in your LOI as much as possible para hindi tayo magkagulo at hindi mawala sa inyo.
So,
Kung
hindi
ano ang
naman
dapat.
nangangahulugan na totally nawala yon o merong sort of disciplinary
Ang
act?
nilalaban ko, no? Just like yung kanina, ang nilalaban ko kasi, it's unfair that you use these people and then these people don't know what to do. Diba?
Tama.
In one way or another, nagamit din sila eh. Diba? So, they should have a right to a stipulation that's supposed to be theirs. Kasi isipin mo ka, Anton, yung mga walang alam sa kayamanan, yung walang alam sa lahat ng iniwan, may specific na gustong ibigay sa kanila. How much for those who were used and how much more for those who are working to make sure this will happen. Yun lang ang point ko. Kasi whether we like it or not, nagamit din sila eh.
Kaya nga.
Hindi rin, di ba? Binigay sa kanila, dumating sa kanila mostly sa kanila dumating with a brown envelope. Oh, this is your brown envelope. This is who you are. This is what is. Of course, you, not knowing what to do, tapos pinola ka ng malaking simbahan dyan o kaya mayaman na tao, finansan kita, kunin natin yan. Of course, it's a different
Nasira
story
tuloy.
altogether.
At ang tanong ni MACP, may lalabas po kaya ngayong taong ito, Ma'am Migz, sa pakiwari mo?
kung kami lang mula nung 2016 gusto na talaga namin ilabas. But of course, we have to work within the bounds of law and much more in the Lord's time. When He deems it na andyan. But on paperwork, nagdadasal din talaga ako. Kasi based on paperwork, it should come out this 2022. So I'm hoping beyond hope really. Na apart from the story and the real story to come out, I hope a portion of it comes out. Because like I told Ka Anton before, whether it's a 1 peso that was transferred or 1,000,000 pesos or the dodecallion, the single peso will tell the whole world who you are. Diba? As long as it came from there, it doesn't matter kung piso yan o kung magkano. Basta gumalaw yan, na tinanggap nila, then ayahay ang Pilipino. They just have to wait for them.
Yan ang magandang hayahay din ang sabi ni Prinsipe. Hayahay ka rin kahit tsaka sa Ilocania. Ito, sabi ni House of Bay, may napansin ako sa palad ni Migz. Pwede ba raw makita yung palad mo? Ano ba meron sa palad mo, Migz?
Kanan, kaliwa. Kanan ko o kaliwa?
Wala namang sinasabi. Ayan. Money, money. Ayan, kanan. Kaya, ayun. Iba yung
siyang diretso. One line.
Parehong linya, ha? Itong Great Reset na banggit mo, iba yung Great Reset natin kaya dun sa Great Reset ni Klaus Schwab. Pag na-implement na yung Great Reset, i-regulate ng humanity wealth, hindi pa ba kayo register? Hindi ko alam kung ano.
Ano po ako? Anti-Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab. Hindi kagaya kay Klaus Schwab. Mark, maraming salamat sa 125. Good evening ka, Anton at Migz. Ang galing ng paliwanag, ang galing mo rin magpaliwanag, lalo pang lumiliwanag. Salamat at mabuhay kayo. Walang anuman. Siyempre, si Migz ang pinakamagaling nating resource person para magpaliwanag lang lahat. Kaya dapat magbalik loob ang Pilipinas sa Panginoon. Ka, Anton, baka may alam si Migz sa National ID at Land Bank.
The national ID, Ka Anton, natatawa nga ako. Nakalimutan nyo kasi, Ka Anton, remember, ang start nating dalawa when we met was the ID.
Yeah.
On paperwork, we were the ones who told the government that we were supposed to start the national ID already. Yes. And the national ID would be the basis for the wealth to move. Remember?
Yeah. And
on
then,
paperwork, yes.
Ng ID nga sana para sa mga WOT members.
Yun po, but I cannot assure you that it would be the same one to use cash. Kasi ang change na ho namin ngayon, kasi based on yung dealings namin with the government, kaya hindi nila ma-push through. Yan. Ang hirap kasi ng pag binigay nila yung ID, no? Yung ID, it's already built in ang RFID kasi nagpalit na dahil sa mga bangko ng QFS. Yet we wanted to upgrade the ID na dapat the ID would come from us, which is with the bank, because this will double yung ID nyo will double as ang based sa paperwork natin na pinas sa government, it will already double as your key. Pag ang hotel key lang, key mo, papasok sa bago mong bahay.
Yeah.
Yun. Kaya nga sa paperwork, if you try to see yung buong paperwork na ginawa namin, because we had to work within the bounds of law, we really registered in SEC to stipulate that we will start with 10 million families who will accept not only yung ID, kung hindi yung it's going to be a cash card, and at the same time the key of their house. That's a very ideal thing. Tulad na ng sabi ng government sa atin, napaka-ideal ng iyong plano. Paano ba natin gagawin? That's why it had to take time. Diba?
It's a live
it had
card.
To take time.
At the same time, it's a live card. May data yun. And
kasi meron siyang either 2 gig or 4 gig of data na pwedeng i-save dun sa card.
Pero syempre mahal yung ID na yun, hindi yun yung kartulina lang. Sabi ni Emil, people are hoping that this wealth na sinasabi nyo na dapat ipamigay, igawin nyo na lang. Kasi kawawa naman ang lahat na umaasa dyan. Ang Emilio, ang problema kasi kalaban natin dito, bumabangga tayo sa Adobe.
Hindi, actually po, Ka-Anton,
sige.
I'll answer that no. We announced in 2017 that the foundation that we built is actually one that will already supersede all Alpha Omega foundations. Now, the only thing the president asked us to do is to make sure that we work within the bounds of law. So within the bounds of law, it takes time for you to get licenses. It takes time for you to get replies from the government. Yun nga ang pinakamahirap, no? Kasi yung timeline natin is different from the working timeline of the government kasi hand in hand dapat yan. Yung pinakita namin kay Ka-Anton na yung mga black screen dati, we were able to get licenses for us to be able to bring in the money. Ang problema, yung mga tao dito nasanay sa under the table. Gusto nila, kausapin namin yung lawyer na to para magkaroon ng share na to. We don't work that way. Kasi isa, sa atin ang pera, bakit ka magbabayad ng under the table? Di ibig sabihin, you start wrong, everything will go wrong. Ang atin, you start it right, everything will flow. But whether we like it or not, sabi ko nga, there are stipulations that even if we wanted to give it a long time ago, the Lord deems it not yet the right time. So, should we be above the Lord and the Father, or should we go with Him in His timeline because He's the one who owns the money and He's only giving it to us as blessings.
Yeah.
Pero sa dami ng butas natin, money will flow like water. Sabi nga, kasi parang sa dam. Pag maraming butas, kahit maliit lang, basta lumabas ng isang trickle ng tubig, sasabog na yung dam eh.
Tuloy-tuloy na yan.
Kasi naka-in place na lahat. Based sa foundation, it has already been legally placed. It has already legally placed na. Naka-record na talaga. So SEC, BIR, and all the offices, to include yung mga government offices, legally nakalagay na. Na once gumalaw ang pera, pupunta na siya directly sa tao. Kaya nga sila din nagkukumahog na mabigay yung ID, mabigay ganito, because we did not bring out the guidelines. Kasi pag linabas namin yung guidelines, gagayahin na kaagad lahat yan eh. Ang hiningi namin, paupuin nyo muna kami at saka you make sure that we don't have problems with moving the money so that we have a double checker na pupunta sa tao. Kasi kung binigay lang natin sa
may possibility ba, Migz, na kasi nabanggit mo nga kanina na yung ating 87 Constitution which superseded the 1973 Constitution, ma-revert tayo sa 1973 na itong 87 constitutionally illegal o may flaws, fraud, may ganun kaya?
I'm hoping po, I'm hoping. Kasi yun, dun din ang pinaglalaban ng lahat. And until now, it's still in Congress na pinaglalaban din ng Congress. But if we see on a physical level what's happening, I think we have a very big chance of not already having an election. Kasi kung titignan natin yung timeline, May 9 na lang yan. May 9 is just 3 weeks away. And the first person to complain about whatever has to be done is actually me. Diba? Kasi siya ang nakaupo ngayon doon sa committee ng elections. Sinasabi niya na may problem si Smartmatic. That's why they don't like to pay Smartmatic already in the 90 million. Oh, if they don't pay Smartmatic and they don't like to go with Smartmatic, so ibig sabihin mano-mano ba? Kailan mo i-print out yung ballot? Printed out na. Anong gusto niyong gawin? Diba?
Hindi na ituloy ang eleksyon natin.
Hindi sa akma eh. But pagdating naman sa Constitution, ang pinakamabilis kasi at this point in time is really have to have a transition government.
Nakikita ko, Migz, ma-interrupt na lang kita, no? Nakikita ko na kapag itong wealth of the nation ay lumabas na, ang pinaka-form ng government na suitable, ayon na yata rin kay Prinsipe, ay yung federalism kasi bawat area o bawat region ay meron na silang kanilang pondo na pagagalawin. Hindi na sila magiging dependent doon sa national government. So siguro isa sa mga kumukontra dyan ay yung mga ayaw ng federalism.
Actually, nasa paperwork ko yun eh, talagang federal tayo. Because apart from the kanya-kanyang pondo, ang pinaka-stipulation kasi, dapat may check and balance. Hindi mo pwedeng ibigay sa government, ito yung pera, ito proyekto. How sure are you that that will go to the people? Diba? Kaya ang check and balance na dinagay nila, dapat yung may-ari o yung administrator will be seated as the prime minister. Because you will issue the money, tapos at the same time, you are making sure that the projects will happen. But if you're not seated, yun yung question eh. If they do not give you the seat and the position, how sure are you also that they will let you hold the money once the money is there?
Preparasyon na nga sana ni Marcos yun eh, no? Kaya nga tayo eh. Bicameral, unicameral ba yan ng araw? Anyway, Odd Gidi, sabi, Kaanton, alam mo ba ay, pwede bang pakitanong kung may idea ka ba na nasa Pilipinas ba yung Ark of the Covenant? Ay, ang sabi ni Odd Gidi, may idea, tinatanong kung may idea ka. Siyempre, kung nasa Pilipinas bang Ark of the Covenant?
Yes.
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 Yan.
Apart from the Ark of Covenant, ngayon binuksan niya ka, Anton. Now I'm reminded about something I have to tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
There was a question before na nagtanong kayo na ang tinatanong nung friend nyo is bakit pinili kayo ni Prinsipe when you only have very few viewers. Yet nadulas ka ng bakit pinili ka ni Migz. Nadulas kang bigla, natawa ako because you were always talking. Now I will answer why we keep on still communicating with you. You told us before that you actually have a staff. Diba? Yung staff mo, yung iyong malaking kahoy.
Yung aking yung aking read.
Since you opened the Ark of the Covenant, anong significance ng Ark of the Covenant? Si Joshua. Joshua was given the staff to make sure that the people will reach the destined place na sinasabing chosen place. What if, based on what ay aking mga care and someone's telling me, sorry spiritual tayo. That what if you are Joshua in this lifetime and you were chosen to make sure that the people will know about this so that everybody can go and reach the destination which is supposed to be yung ating wealth of the nations, diba? Maybe that's the reason they gave you the staff.
Possible.
Kasi yun din ang ano ni Joshua diba? They gave him the staff to make sure so that he can bring.
Moses? Hindi ba si Moses yun? Yung staff na yun? Anyway, siguro nga, nandiyan pa yung apelido natin. May mga hula na nga rin, may mga nagpunta nga sa akin na nakakita ako ng UFO, naka-encounter ako ng ganito, naka-encounter ako ng ganyan, too plenty to detail. Pero may mga nagpunta nga sa akin iglesia na sinasabi na, ikaw ito, pero ayoko nang magbuhat ng kamay. Pero malay natin. Sana nga naman. No? Kasi wala naman tayong ibang hangad, no? Ito ay may distribute agad sa lalong madaling panahon. Well, Migz, magdadalawang oras na tayo and maraming salamat sa iyong pagtsatsaga. Nararamdaman ko, naririnig ko na medyo pagod na rin ang iyong tinig. Mga 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 pabilin, mga ilang mensahe bago tayo magtapos, Migz. Teka, nawala ka. sorry. Pakibalik, Migz, sorry ha, nawala, may napindot yata ako. And please come back para makarinig namin yung iyong mga paalala bago tayo magtapos. Please come back, Migz. Ano ko yung aking ano. Magano muna tayo. Konting patalastas.
Then start.
Ayan, napakalaki nung araw. So sorry, Migz, na may napindot ako and na-abort yung ating transmission at napindot ko yung dito yata kaya nawala ka. So maraming salamat. Just the same. Maraming salamat sa iyo, Migz G, sa iyong napaka-succinct na paliwanag hinggil sa Bretton Woods dito sa ang significance niyan dun sa ating sinasabing napakalaking deposit ng ginto. Ayan, sinimulan natin sa Bretton Woods, no? Ayan na nagbabalik na si Migz. And bibigyan natin ng pagkakataon. Sorry, Migz, may napindot ako. Hindi.
Hindi, sa akin po yata, Anton, namatay yung phone ko.
Nalobat.
I thought, ayan.
Okay. So, Migz, mga mensahe mo bago tayo magtapos, please.
Bago po ako, last message po, sagutin ko lang yung sabi po nung kasama ko, you were asking kung hindi si Moses ba ang nabigyan ng staff. Actually, Moses was given the staff. He brought the people round and round na hindi nakagating, di ba? That's why he turned over the staff and the medallion to Joshua para makagating based sa Bible. Moses did not reach the promised land, so I don't think you'd like to be Moses. I think you'd like to be Joshua kasi andyan na tayo malapit na tayo, di ba?
Pareho kami ni Moses no? Madaling mag-give up Butik na nga.
Pero sabi nga that's part of growing.
Kaya nga. So, Migz, maraming salamat sa pag-discuss mo and mga mensahe mo bago tayo mag-good night, please.
Again, I'd like to thank Anton and all the viewers po and listeners for the time that you've given me to explain. Ang last na hiling ko na lang po talaga for all the claimants to take access of it, please stand down. This is my last request. Please stand down because then it's only creating confusion, not only for everybody, but it's creating confusion for the banks and all the cabal out there to use you guys to make sure actually access anything. So please stand down. Yun na lang ang hinihiling ko para makagating tayo sa pagkakaroon na natin. At the same time, ang hinihiling ko na lang din sa taong bayan, no, is for you to first and foremost pray that we would succeed already the soonest possible time and that the Lord already would, kumbaga, pagbigyan na tayo ng langit na sana nga talaga ito na to. But moreoverly, we have to prepare ourselves, no? We have to prepare ourselves kasi dalawa either you're prepared, dumating sa iyo, maganda ang buhay mo, or hindi ka prepared, tapos malunod ka. Di lalong hindi mo lalong hindi siya magiging maganda para sa buhay mo even if the blessings are there. So the only thing that you can do is really prepare yourself for whatever is to come. And pray. Yun lang po.
Thank you so much for the motivation and the inspiration. And alam naman natin na ito ay magiging progressive pa. And please, kung may mga mensahe ka para sa taong bayan, laging bukas ang ating programa, Migz. Maraming salamat at mabuhay ka.
Thank you so much, Anton.
Okay, thank you. Ayan po si Migz G sa kanyang paghahatid na update tungkol dito ano yung education na kanyang provide regarding sa Bretton Woods at yung sa mga tinatawag nating seal, no? Kasi makikita natin yan sa bagong 1,000 bill, yung 5 petal flowers na yan. Sabi ni Rao ay, basta ka na Rao. Kuya Anton, narinig niyo na ba tungkol sa Republic Act 11211 na nag-aamyenda sa RA 7653 or Central Bank Act of 1993 through Senate Bill 2109 na naipasa noong 2014. Ang author ay si Senator Marcos kasi it allows yung Central Bank ng Pilipinas na mag-imprenta ng pera backed by gold at walang limitasyon at kaya ang bilis-bilis na pautangin ng World Bank, IMF ang Pilipinas nitong panahon ng pandemya. Tuloy-tuloy ang build. Yung gold bars under old central bank ay simula pa lang. Bukod pa sa mga nakadeposit. I'll take note of that. Raho, please send me. Mon, padalan mo ako ng PM or sa messenger ko tungkol dito sa RA 1121 dahil ito ay hindi ko masisave at the moment. But re-research natin ito tungkol dun sa old central bank. At yung ano man ang visa ng Old Central Bank ay maaari siguro ay maaari pa natin yan gamitin bilang dagdag sa ating pundasyon. Yes, that is clear. The PM should be the wealth administrator and that's you, Migz. PM administrator si Migz. Kung siya ay maano ng Prime Minister, whatever it may take or whatever it may cost for the benefit of the greater number of humanity. Tama ka, Rashid. Chona yung ko, kind-hearted ka, okay, spread at ma-inform ang tao, very informative po. Thank you, Chona, for the appreciation. Kay Gay Dando, Seranto, pakitanong kay Migz, wala na. If may kilala po siya, connection kay Madam Aurora, buti na lang hindi natin siya pagsasalita itong kay Madam Aurora. Dapat kasi bilisan nyo. Mahirap talaga James, kasi marami tayong kalaban. To God be the glory. Please be united as Filipinos. Spread peace and unity to all and above all, turn back to our Creator, our Almighty God. Shanawa Shalom. And dapat kaya bilisan no. Wala kahit anong bilis natin na James, kung mas matindi yung mga balakid, wala tayong magagawa sa ating kakayahan lang. No? Pero sana nga naman, magkaroon ng divine intervention at maibigay na sa atin at bumuhos na ang biyaya. 1,000 taon pa naman yan eh. Maabutan pa na ang mga apo-apo natin yan. Good evening po, Kanto Migz. Very well said, Ma'am Migz. Napakalinaw ng explanation mo. God bless us all and mabuhay ang WOTN. Di na po pwede mag-print ng fiat. Wala na siyang value. Maging digital na po ang lahat. Yun din naman ang panibagong challenge kapag naging digital na, ano naman kaya ang magiging backup ng mga digital points, digital digits na mababasa sa ating mga cellphone at computer screen. DC, good evening sa iyo, DC. For when the kingdom of righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit is established in the heart, there is then an ample provision made for the fulfillment of the divine will. Good evening, everyone. Chito Contreras, thank you, Ka-Anton and Migz, for the good news. God bless you both. To God be the glory. Nestor Limtan, Ka-Anton, may mensahe ako tungkol sa petal leaves sa 1,000 bill. Okay, basahin ko yan after the show. And Marvin Danyong, let us pray together for humanity. Indeed, tayo po ay manatiling mananampalataya, tayo magbigyan ng ating bansa ay patuloy na gabayan ng ating Panginoon at nang sa ganoon ay hindi tayo matulad sa ibang mga bansa na nabot na ng taggutom. Kaya manatili lamang po tayong manampalataya sa ating Panginoon. With that, mag-good night na rin at maraming salamat sa inyong pag-antabay sa ating mga telegrammers at sa ating mga kasama dyan sa Facebook, facebook.com/alientalk at youtube.com/kaanton. Muli, hanggang sa ating muling pag-broadcast, nag-iwan po ako sa inyo ng isang magandang gabi.
dakilang lahat